Hello, Spookies, and welcome to Rick or Treat Horrorcast, hosted by yours ghoulie, Ricky J. Duarte. I couldn't have asked for a better pair of guests for this particular episode. Blaine Duncan is a Halloween and horror film fanatic. He's a lifelong paranormal enthusiast who recently created and executive produced a 4-part documentary series, Amityville, an original story on MGM+. Now, after being introduced to horror by his brother and inspired by incredibly talented VFX artists like Greg Nicotero and Tom Savini, Austin Duncan's childhood was marked by countless hours working on Jason Voorhees masks rather than his homework. After nearly 25 years of late nights discussing theories and favorites in horror, things eventually came full circle when the two brothers joined together in early 2023 to host Halloween Lives, the podcast of Michael Myers, a weekly podcast dedicated 100% to the Halloween franchise. Welcome to the podcast, Blaine and Austin Duncan.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. We're excited to be here. And I have to say this, Ricky, that you have the coolest name for a podcast ever. Yeah. I absolutely love it. Like the first time I ever heard of it, I was like, this is the greatest name for a Halloween podcast. I love it. It's such an awesome play, obviously, on your name, and then Trick or Treat. It's fantastic. So thank you for having us on the show. We're really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. It actually, I think you guys launched a few months after I launched. And so I think the algorithm put us together on suggested follows.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Rick or Treat, I played men's roller derby here in New York for like half a month. And my derby name they gave me was Rick or Treat. And so that's actually where it came from.
That's awesome. I love it.
And I saw someone shatter his collarbone, and that was the end of my derby.
Oh my God.
I don't blame you.
Fellas, holy cow. I would love it if you would take a moment and introduce yourselves, introduce your show, and let my listeners know all about it. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I'm Blaine. I'm the older brother, and the other guy here with us is Austin, my younger brother, and we're from the Midwest. We're from the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and we're just, man, we're big horror fans, but even bigger Halloween franchise fans. And like you said in your introduction of us, we had talked a long time about this franchise and what it was about. And, there's been other Halloween podcasts out there. There's been other podcasts where people have talked about Michael Myers. And there's been other podcasts that have been specific to the Halloween franchise. And we said, what can we do that's different? And we said, well, let's do a weekly Halloween podcast, which is something nobody has ever done. And we're going on a year and a half now almost, and we're going strong. And we have a blast talking about this week after week and coming up with new ideas. And we've had on quite a few guests who've been in the different films. And it's just such a great franchise to talk about. There's so much that we can talk about with it. So it's been a lot of fun. And then obviously to be able to do it with my brother makes it that much better. So it's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where people always go like, is there that much to talk about with Halloween? And we haven't stopped yet, and we've still got plenty to talk about. And with new movies, new TV shows coming up, there's just going to keep on being more. And it's our favorite thing to talk about. So we thought, why not do a podcast about it?
But as soon as that recent news about the TV show was announced, I knew I couldn't wait to listen to your episode on it. God, there's so much speculation going on, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not getting into that, although it's newsworthy. I think it's really great that you two brothers are able to do this together, because I have such great memories of watching this series with my younger brother and how formative this series specifically was in my taste in horror. And I think we're probably around the same age, I'm assuming. So we kind of grew up in the release of this kind of era of like kind of the Daniel Harris and like the into, Cult of Thorn and all of that. And so it's indoctrinated. Whether or not they're good movies, they are great movies in my mind.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. It was a great time to grow up as a horror fan,
Yeah.
but an even better time to grow up as a Halloween fan. And that's something that Austin and I have talked about is we were so lucky. And we obviously then got the Rob Zombie films, whether you like them or not, we got them. Then we got the David Gordon Green trilogy here from 2018 and until 2022. And it's just been it's been a lot of fun to be a Halloween fan. And I think there's a lot more that's on the horizon for us, which some people want it to go away. Some people, even Halloween fans, are like, hey, they've killed Michael Myers off enough. And we're kind of the opposite of that. That's just, we're like our podcast says, we're Halloween lives. We want Halloween to continue to go on, and we want more younger, horror fans to find the franchise and to discover it. And, so that's really what we're all about, is pushing for more Michael.
I will show up to buy a movie ticket every time there's a Halloween movie. I don't care if it's Michael Myers in space, which they joke
Right.
about all the time. Like, I will be there, so it's great. I love the fandom around Halloween. There's like this really cool gothic texture to the Halloween series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's very self-serious, right? I think it was Robert Englund who said that, or maybe it was Clive Barker who said that Mustafa Akkad treats Halloween as though it's Hamlet. And I actually appreciate that. Whether or not they take a bad turn, there are bold swings, and it goes off the rails, but not in like a campy, silly way,
And I think that's why you
campy
see,
and silly, but
yeah, I think that's why you see such opinionated fans in the Halloween world, is because they do it, and it's one of my favorite things. Like what you're saying is like, it is one of the franchises throughout the entire time. I think, obviously, my head goes to the Nightmare on Elm Street series that maybe didn't take itself as seriously as their first entry, a few sequels in. Halloween, for the most part, outside of a couple moments throughout the series, is one of those franchises that is very serious about what they're doing. It's everything's got that dark tone that you're talking about.
yeah.
And I think that that's a huge area that I like about that franchise.
I think the really amazing part about the Halloween franchise is it's so much different than any of the other big horror franchises. As far as, I think about Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, obviously, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You can throw Scream in there. This is a franchise that actually has a convention and has had a convention for, going on close to 25 years. And every 5 years, it has a convention that is specific to this franchise. And Austin and I were very fortunate. We got to go out and go to that convention, the Halloween 45 Years of Terror convention out in Pasadena. And I was blown away because you had thousands of fans who were at this thing. And it's like this all stemmed from basically a little indie film that was made back in 1978. And here we are today, that no matter what you think of Halloween Ends, the latest film in the series, or not, the film Halloween, John Carpenter's 1978, will forever be a classic in this genre. And it's just amazing at how far the film has reached, and how many lives it really has impacted, and how many people have been inspired by it, and how many other movies it's inspired. I mean, it's incredible.
That's even Halloween inspired the film we're talking about today in style. It evolved, right? The slasher evolved from Halloween into what Halloween 4 becomes. And I just think it's so funny that the series became a copycat of what was copying Halloween.
Right.
Very true.
The original concept, we'll get into the John and Deborah being approached for this when we get into the film. I am curious, and I was trying to find my answer for this. Do you remember what order you watched the Halloween films in?
Go ahead, Austin, if you remember.
Yeah, mine is tough because I am actually 11 years younger than Blaine. So I was watching them super early, and we had all the VHSs back in the day. And I think, to me, it's the Thorn trilogy is kind of what stands out as like my earliest memories of Michael Myers. I think maybe Halloween 6, but I know Halloween 4 and Halloween H2O were like the big two that I was, I mean, as a kid, I wasn't super interested in the first one because it's less action packed. But I think like Halloween 6 or Halloween 4 were kind of the big two for me growing up as very young.
Yeah, and for me, I remember I remember my mom renting me Halloween H2O when I believe I was in seventh grade. And I still remember watching it in my room. I remember I was laying on my bed watching. I mean, I remember it. That's how much of an impact that film made on me. Is I remember where I was, when I was, where I was and when I was there, from there, I don't remember exactly the order, but I do believe, if I was to make a guess, I do believe Halloween 4 was the next film that I saw. And I can't tell you why. It was probably the one that was available at the rental place that we went to. But the original I didn't see until at least the third film of the franchise, as far as like the order in which I saw them. But it could have been even further than that. But I do know H2O was first, and I'm pretty sure 4 was the second one. And I think 4 was the one that really, really set its hooks in me. And I'm sure we'll talk about the opening here later on, but
Yes.
just that opening alone, and Austin and I are big fans of Halloween, that the holiday, and that is such an iconic opening to that film. Something that I still just watch to this day. I'll just watch it on YouTube, just watch the opening.
It's gorgeous. And every time I watch the movie, I get like sucked into the opening montage, and then it's over before I want it to be. I always forget that it's brief. I don't know what I'm picturing, like a 5-minute opening credit scene. That's ridiculous, but it just sucks you in. It's gorgeous. I love this movie. I think I lucked out and I watched 1 and 2 in one sitting. It was a double feature. I think it was Joe Bob. I think it might have been Monster Vision doing 1 and 2, and then 6. And
Oh, really? Okay.
6 would have been some time after. I love 6. I have the Curse of Thorn tattoo on my wrist.
Awesome.
But I know it's like, but it's the producer's cut version. It's Dr. Loomis's, which is off to the side a little more than Michael's.
Mhm.
I have a Michael tattoo on my arm. Like this is my thing, right? So 6, it dug its claws into me. And then there was H2O, which I begged my mom to take me to the movie theater to see. She would not take me to the movies to see it. We did rent it, just like you. And then it would have been 4 or 5, and Resurrection was the first time that I saw a Halloween movie in theaters, which is a real bummer.
Same. Yes, same. I agree that Halloween Resurrection was the first film that came out. Obviously came out after H2O, and it was the first film that I also saw in the theater, but it was also the first film that of any movie, doesn't matter the genre or franchise, but it was the first Halloween film and movie that I was ever like insanely excited to see, where I had read the script before it dropped. Like I remember the script leaked online, and I had to buy the mask before the movie came out. And it was just like following along. At the time, the internet was just kind of starting to become a thing, or it was a thing, but it was just, so following along with everything. And I just remember the excitement of that film being released that summer. And so, Resurrection in itself is not one of my favorite movies, but it does hold a special place in my heart because of the nostalgic reasons of going back to being that, whatever I was at the time, ninth grade or 10th grade or whatever I was, and just knowing that this Halloween film was coming out.
I had it easy. My first time watching a Halloween movie in the theaters was Halloween 2018. I had a great first experience. It's one of my favorites of the franchise.
Wow.
But yeah, I remember Blaine. I felt like I had seen the movie before it had came out too. Just Blaine and I talking as kids, what the internet was saying at the time. It was like Arrow in the Head, Joe Blow, all those sites.
Yeah.
What they were talking about.
It was, I remember Jamie Lee Curtis was so featured on the poster. And I remember reading a spoiler that she would not be featured in the film. And so I went into it knowing that she had a very brief intro scene, but I sat through that entire movie expecting her to show up at the end and save the day.
Oh yeah.
I was convinced that she was, and there was no Laurie at the end. And
right.
So that was a disappointing life moment for me.
Yeah, that would have been something that would have definitely changed the course of that film if at the end she had been like, surprise, I'm back.
Yeah, it's just I didn't understand that she was done with the series at that point, or so she thought.
Right.
Yeah, you got exactly. Buster Rhymes instead. What else do you need?
We sure did, didn't we? Well, All right, so we are talking Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. It was an accident at first. I covered the first Halloween in my first month of podcasting, and then 6 months later happened to do Halloween 2 with Anthony Massey, who is a massive Halloween fan.
Yeah.
And then this last October, Halloween 3 came up. And now it became a pattern. Every 6 months, I'm covering a Halloween film in release order. And my running joke now is that after I get to Halloween Ends, the show's over. I don't have to podcast anymore.
Right, exactly. Well, maybe we'll have a new film by then. Hopefully, that'd be awesome.
And a whole new TV series. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. This is what is it? Halloween Lives. Exactly.
Right. Exactly. That's right. Well, we might have to copyright that name or something.
I think you should, definitely. Yeah. Honestly, it could come up in the series at some point.
Right.
I love this movie for so many reasons. This is my favorite Dr. Loomis out of the entire series. For sure. I think he's a really cool character to watch like as an arc, because this is where, post Halloween 2, now he's just fed up and he's like, guys, no one will fucking listen to me until I raise my voice. Now I have to use my daddy voice, and now you'll listen to me. And then in 5, he's just over the top maniacal, which I appreciate. He's like, he can't let Michael live at any cost. He's going to use Jamie as bait. And then he's a little wasted in 6, as much as I love that movie. But I want to do a cosplay of Loomis in this film with the burn mark. Like, I'm bald, I'm portly, I have a beard. I feel like I'm made for this.
I completely agree. I think this is Loomis. Obviously he's got the great monologues in the original film, but Loomis is like, this is the perfect balance of like the guy who used to be a child psychologist and then now is like a hunter of Michael Myers. He's in a really good spot here. I think the scene with him and Michael in the bar, which we'll get to, is one of my favorite Loomis scenes of all time.
For sure. The dialogue there. And I noticed today he's such a great actor, and this sounds stupid to realize suddenly today, but he carries the scene dialogue wise, because obviously Michael doesn't speak, and yet he's delivering lines as though he is communicating with Michael. It's a very like, first he warns him, don't go to Haddonfield, and then by the end of that, he's begging him, spare these people, like, don't go. I love him so much. He was brilliant, and I'm so glad that he stuck with the series.
Yeah, he does a great job, and I think what you see is this sort of beginning with Halloween 4, the sort of downward spiral into madness, if you will, with Loomis, which I think it just makes that character so much better, because you see the toll that it has taken on him going back to 78 all the way through. He unfortunately passed away after part 6. But it's almost like a completely different person, and you watch him, this transition and this spiral into madness where he's obsessed, obviously, and you see glimmers or hints of that in 78, and obviously in part 2, since it takes place the same night, but you really see it in 4, 5, and 6 of just this obsession and this madness with stopping this guy at all costs.
And I think a lot of that lies on his choices as an actor, not to throw writers under the bus, but I don't see a lot of that embedded within the text of the screenplays. I really think it's him making choices of like, all right, I'm going to go deeper in this movie. I'm going to go deeper in this movie. And I just appreciate that so much.
For sure.
He's got kind of a old Hollywood style, and very like play-esque. With the way I'm gonna butcher or say the line, but he says like, you came back to him in that scene, and it's very dramatic, but it's kind of one of those lines where I think only Donald Pleasence could pull that kind of stuff off.
Sure, 1,000%. He's just perfect for this role. Thank God he took it in the original film. They coughed up that extra money for him. Well, all right. I want to talk about the mask in this film, because this is no secret, it's awful.
Right, to say the least. You see
the poster, and it's a still from Halloween 2, and so you've got the Dick Warlock like wider face, but it looks detailed and it looks cool and looks familiar. And I mean, you guys have to know the history behind this. It was makeup technician Ken Horn he asked for molds of the original Captain Kirk mask. The original mask was used in 1 and 2, and then Deborah Hill was a heavy smoker, and it turned yellow, and it was old, and I think it was given to Dick Warlock after part 2, maybe.
Yeah,
So
I
anyway, they
believe so.
couldn't use it. Ken was sent 6 masks, and they were not what he expected at all. They were pink, and they had like white blonde hair, and this was what he had to work with. And he had limited time, and so he had to repaint them and dye them himself. The paint that he used was too thick, and it just kind of covered up any kind of detail at all in the masks. And then on top of that, we had producers like blaming him for all of this and trying, last minute, they've got 3 minutes before, it's time to shoot. And they're trying to get him to change the shapes of eye holes. And he's just so overwhelmed, this poor guy. There was a day he was actually fired, and Fangoria was on the set covering the film. And and I love this because I write for Rue Morgue. It makes me feel like I have power as a horror journalist. But he stood up for him and saw that he was struggling and told the producers, like, Fangoria is not going to touch this movie if you fire this poor man today. And so his job was saved. But
yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It truly is. I think, I've said this before on our show, that if the mask was better, if they had the original mask in this film, or very, very close to it, this movie to me could be above, as far as ranking films, this movie could potentially be above the original 78. That's how much I love H4. But it is truly a travesty that this mask was butchered, and we got what we got, because I think that it takes this movie down a notch. And it's so unfortunate, because this movie is damn near perfect, in my opinion, in every other way, in every other aspect, except for the mask. And it's like, Austin and I talked about this on a recent show, like things that we have to see out of the next installment, whatever that is. And one of the comments that I made is the mask has to be good. They have to get the mask right, because if they don't, and I'm not even against like being somewhat creative and coming up with your own design and, your own look, much like they did kind of with H6. Like, I love that mask. It's a great mask. But if you don't get the mask right, it's just such a huge swing and a miss, and it really truly affects the overall experience of the film.
I've come almost full circle on the H4 mask. It looking at all of the masks together, yes, it still ranks very low for me.
Yeah.
But it's almost like when I was a kid, I almost didn't like the movie as much because Michael looked the way he looked. And now I've kind of come to the point where it's like, oh, but that's the H4 mask. That's the one where he's in one of my favorite Halloween movies of all time. And so I've got a replica Halloween 4 mask.
Nice.
It was kind of one of the first true Michael Myers cosplays I ever put together was a Halloween 4. It's definitely one of the least threatening, if not the least threatening look of Michael Myers throughout the series. And yes, it's like it is a deterrent on an otherwise pretty perfect movie, in my opinion. But I don't know. I found some charm in it as time has gone on. But have to agree, compared to the other masks, it's pretty rough.
Austin's the optimist when it comes to the H4 mask.
Sounds like it. This film was around in my childhood so much, specifically Jamie's nightmare scene, and I think that Michael is filmed super well in this movie. Yes. Just he's well filmed, and so it is a big bummer. I mean, it should have been a better mask. But Austin, I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. Like, it has grown on me. I've embraced it. It is what it is. The hair is unkept. It's all one stark white. But I don't know. It's nostalgia. It's there for me. It scared me when I was a kid.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I was terrified.
And let's not forget too that, going back to that mask that you were talking about, sort of the pinkish toned skin and the white blonde hair, that mask actually makes an appearance in the film, right? There's a scene where I believe it's in the school when he grabs Loomis and throws Loomis or whatever he does. My understanding is the story was they were filming incredibly late into the night, and somehow this mask made it into the film. And I think about it, and it's just like, how did nobody notice this thing? Like, that this mask has pink skin, and Michael has this white spray painted skin or white look. And it's just, to me, that is, it's almost comical and good. I mean, thankfully it happens so quickly that it actually, I didn't even notice it until somebody had pointed it out to me years later. But it's like that in itself is so comical that we actually got to see what that shitty mask looks like, and it made it into the film,
Yeah. I think if YouTube had never been invented, we still would not notice it when we sit through it. But now it's so blatantly clear because I know it's coming, and then but yeah, it's a quick shot. It's not too long.
Right.
It's better than the CGI mask in H2O, in my opinion.
Oh God.
My biggest problem with the mask, looking back on it, is that it almost takes away from the brilliant performance by George P. Wilbur, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Who absolutely crushes it in Halloween 4. I think, Blaine, you're a bigger fan of his performance in Halloween 6. But I love the stiff Michael. I'm a big fan of like the Halloween 2 Dick Warlock style as well. But yeah, that would be my biggest problem with the H4 mask, is a guy whose physical performance was extremely threatening is brought down by kind of a shocked expression Michael Myers
the whole time with eyebrows.
right with eyebrows. Yeah.
In Resurrection, does he have eyebrows again? I feel like
he does.
It's very metrosexual in Resurrection.
Yes, like, that's what I say too. Exactly.
He's kind of a stud. Like,
he's like boy band.
I say no to Michael? I don't know.
I call him boy band Michael, because that's what he is. He's just like very slick and very put together, and
the collar up, right? He's like got his collar.
He's top collar. It's like in sync Michael Myers.
Yeah, and he's got some like contouring on the paint job. He's very Kim K would approve.
Very much so. This movie, John Carpenter had moved on. He was approached to write this film, and he came up with a pitch. I don't know if he wrote an entire screenplay, but his idea was to focus a little bit more on kind of the psychological effects that the first two films had on the town of Haddonfield. And I read one little thing about it that used the word ghostly. So I don't know if it was going to turn a little more towards supernatural, but producers didn't want that. They didn't want anything to do with that. They wanted a more traditional late 80s slasher. And so John and Deborah walked.
Right.
We got to see some of that in the David Gordon Green trilogy. I know, Austin, you just said that you like that trilogy. It's not for me, but I'm not going to begrudge anybody who loves it. I just wish, I feel like handling the grief of the town, I would have loved to have seen that through John's eyes.
I think there was some overcorrection after Halloween 3. I think people were so in need of just the classic Halloween that they weren't willing to take, as great as Halloween 4 is. I think I always say it's kind of the textbook sequel to Halloween. It really doesn't take a lot of great liberties as far as what the story is trying to convey, and likely due to them having to go back to formula after trying something new with Halloween 3. And obviously, like, Blaine and I are huge fans of Halloween 3, and it's become its own thing since then. But at the time, obviously, there was some backlash. And so, we did get kind of more of a subtle storyline. I agree with you on some of the David Gordon Green stuff. I think the mob mentality that they still did implement into this film is done a lot more subtly and a lot more realistically. There is no evil dies tonight, which I think everybody can be happy about.
Everybody, the worst line in the entire franchise, everybody agrees, is evil dies tonight.
1000%. And God, they say it so often throughout the film. It even made it into Scream 6.
Right. Yes. It did. Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah, damn it. Well, listen, I would love to get into the plot of this movie if you guys want to go trick-or-treating with me.
Let's do it.
All right. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. I do want to mention there was originally to be an opening sequence that would include the end of Halloween 2, showcasing the explosion and the fire at the hospital and showing that Michael and Loomis had both survived it. Now, our director, who did a ton of research, he really wanted to do a good job with this movie. He was like a Halloween fan, and Dwight H. Little, who went on to direct Broken Arrow, which...
And Free Willy too.
Did he really do Free Willy too? That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
he did.
That's
Yeah.
funny. He felt that leaving that alone was the best idea, and to be a little more vague about how Loomis and Michael survived was the way to go. And I guess I agree, because in the more recent Halloween films, I didn't love the flashback recreations of the original movie for me personally. And I don't think that I need it with H4. We know what we need. Like, we know what we need to know by seeing the burn scars on them.
Right. Right. Yeah. And my understanding is too, that there was originally it was written that they were going to recreate the explosion and there was going to be some more of that. And that was all scrapped due to budgetary concerns, basically. And I think about that now, and I know we touched on we touched on the Halloween 4 opening and just how iconic and classic it's become. But if we had a different opening, how that would change that film, because I look at from the very first title card that we get and we open up in that country setting in Illinois. It just sets the tone for the film.
Yes.
I mean, you watch it and you instantly feel like it's October. It's instantly, this is Halloween, which I don't think all of the films have been able to capture. I think Halloween 6 did a really good job of that. I think David Gordon Green's 2018 did a pretty good job of that, but not all of them have been able to capture the essence, that feel of Halloween. And H4 just hit a grand slam when it comes to that feeling.
Well, 3 really does not feel like Halloween at all, except
No.
for the iconography of the masks. So I think it was really wise to throw us into that, to remind us, like, okay, you are sitting down for a Halloween movie. This is what you're going to watch. And then when the score comes in, exactly when it does, now we are in a Michael Myers Halloween movie. And I just think it's really well done. I should mention also, the film was written by Danny Lispius, Larry Ratner, Benjamin Ruffner, and Alan B. McElroy, with music by Alan Howarth, who had worked with John Carpenter extensively. And it was his goal to extend the score to this film as though it is directly connected to the original. And I think he exceeds with leaps and bounds. The score, fits this film so well.
It's awesome.
It's one of the best parts about Halloween 4. It's it's kind of the subtleties. We went crazy in Halloween 3 with the score, and obviously love it to this day, but it is no more of those like screaming synths. This is a lot more subtle. It's obviously got that 80s flair to it, and you can feel that, but it is so great. And that opening title sequence is, I don't think I missed a Halloween listening to that piece of the score on the actual day of October 31st each year. It's it goes with the territory for me.
This is a true story. Legit, 2 days ago, it was rainy and overcast where we were living, and I kind of live out in the country myself, and I was driving around and I went onto YouTube and I put on the H4 soundtrack and was just playing it as I was driving down the road, because it had that feel, it had that vibe. And I agree with everything that Austin just said. Like, it was the way it was done. Alan Howarth did a fantastic job of giving as much of a nod to the original as he could, while also keeping it very original and making sure that he's original to the film of Halloween 4, I should say, and making it his own. I mean, it was just so good.
Yeah. Well, the film opens as a title card. Well, we get the card October 30th, 1988, and then Mustafa Akkad presents, obviously, Donald Pleasence in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Donald gets top billing here, like sole billing, which is really cool too. It's his movie, right? And then this incredible opening sequence with old, like, dusty Halloween decorations and the countryside blowing in the wind. There's leaves blowing and everything we've already said. It really, like, left a memorable impression in, like, the hearts of, like, young budding Halloween fans. I think it's interesting. This movie, so many, when we went and when we watched 2018 and there was an ice machine at a gas station, every single one of us sat there thinking, that's a nod to Halloween 4, bro. And it's like, this movie has such iconography. Like, it's an ice machine. Why do we all remember that so specifically? It's like in 2, the cutting board in the neighbor's house. Why are these things, like, ingrained in us? I don't know.
No,
So
we
true.
Blaine and I always talk about like we couldn't pass a math test, but like we could tell you about some specific pieces of
Yep.
Halloween iconography that are like ingrained in us forever.
Yep. Same. Same. So we leave this beautiful sunsetty, spooky opening and we cut to a dark, rainy night, and a transport ambulance arrives at Ridgemont Federal Sanitarium to pick up the infamous Michael Myers. Why they wait until the night before Halloween, I will never know. The plan is to bring him back to Smith's Grove. Now, a security guard played by Raymond O'Connor, who is great in this short, brief role.
Awesome.
He's terrific. He's just, you love him, you know?
He's creepy. He's perfect. Because you don't know, did he like just get out of this place? Like did he just get released and they hired him as a security guard because he knows the building? Like right. that's what he like he flirts with that line of, is this dude like okay, or what's the scoop here?
Yeah, that's a great point. He catches two medical assist the people who are transporting him up and the audience up on the events of Halloween's 1 and 2. So we get this 10 years ago. This is what happened on Halloween night. This guy's super dangerous. Fills us in that Michael and Loomis survived an explosion at the hospital. And he tells him, you never get used to the faces. Never. And one of someone screams and one of the attendants says, Jesus. And he looks him dead in the eyes and he tells him, Jesus ain't got nothing to do with this place. And it's great. I'm on board. You know,
Austin and I say that to each other all the time. If one of us is like, Jesus, we'll just immediately like, Jesus ain't got nothing to do with this place.
He's another one in this film that it's like, I don't know who else could have done and delivered that like exposition in there, but also made it feels it's very horror. Like you get like this guy who's just all around creepy. For the people that aren't like super into the lore of Michael Myers and everything like that, I think it delivers on the creep factor on the movie alone, and it is one of the best. Blaine and I are always saying, Jesus ain't got nothing to do with this place.
It's great. It's so succinct. If you don't if 1988, if you hadn't seen Halloween since it came out 10 years before, this is all you need to know to watch this movie if you're not obsessed, right? Now, Michael is kept now in a kind of maximum security cell at his underground. Well, it feels maximum security, but you get down there and it's pretty relaxed, actually.
Right.
His face is bandaged. Even 10 years after this fire, he's still bandaged up, but it's cool because it emulates the white mask. We still can't see him. He still looks like he's wearing the mask, but he does have burn scars on his arms. And we learn that Michael's doctor is glad to be rid of him, mostly so that he can get Dr. Loomis out of his hair because he's a total pain in the ass. And he says that Loomis doesn't read memos, and that's why he's not here for the transfer. This is a little bit of a cop-out for me, if I'm perfectly honest. And they address it, obviously, a minute later, but I mean, just go with it. We're on number 4 by now. You just got to
right.
bend some rules. Now, as Michael is transported on a gurney to the ambulance, this is when that music just jumps in, and it's so good with lightning crashing, and it's okay. Now we have the Halloween score, and it's glorious.
Yeah, it definitely sets the pace or the tone. You know, they were really trying to hit every single mark after Halloween 3, where you know they were kind of told they missed the mark. So it's like we got to make this return, this resurrection of Michael as grand as it can possibly be. And obviously the fans or any movie watcher knows this dude's about to do something. It's about to go south somehow. And I think that anticipation, that anxiety that you get in that scene is just so well done. That whole opening scene, I mean, you get kind of 2 opening scenes to this movie, and they both knock it out of the park.
Well, and the film has been so still up until now, right? Almost that peaceful montage into a quiet but creepy sanitarium, and then suddenly you're thrust into the score in the pouring rain, loading him into an ambulance.
Yep. And it's got that great shot too when the ambulance doors close, and you get the camera shot shooting through the windows of the ambulance as they pull away, and the doctor standing there in the rain. I love that shot.
Yeah. It's so good. The cinematography is really great in this movie. That was done by Peter Lyons Collister, and I just really knew how to shoot a Halloween film, I think. Now they start to drive off, and Michael is laying in the gurney, and the attendants discuss Michael's surviving niece, who happens to live in Haddonfield, who's too young to be his legal ward, so he technically belongs to the state. And when he hears this, Michael's hand begins to make a fist, and suddenly Michael grabs the male attendant by the forehead and starts slamming it into the metal wall of the ambulance, blood on the wall behind him, and then he digs his thumb into the forehead of this poor man while the female attendant looks on in horror and screams. This kill is embedded. This might be like the most visceral, like the first time I remember being absolutely horrified by a murder in a movie.
Yeah, it was the FX were really good for that, because they were like you said, you start out the film is so peaceful in a way, and then the next thing you know, you have a killer jamming his thumb through another man's skull. Like it hits you out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He's I would imagine, putting myself back in the seat of somebody in 1988, you've seen two different Michael Myers at this point. Halloween 1, which is much more stealthy and like quick kills, and then Halloween 2, where like the violence was cranked up to 11. You got to be wondering in your seat back then, what Michael are we going to get? And it's very clear right away. This dude's about the violence.
Yeah, we've never seen Michael kill like this before, really, right? We see him strangle the dog, but you don't see him strangle the dog. You see the legs. So like this is him bare hands, brutal, like, and going for that late 80s gore, stronger than the first three films, frankly, ever took it. So now we cut to Jamie Lloyd, played by Danielle Harris, Michael's 7-year-old niece and the daughter of Laurie Strode, who died in, I've always assumed it was a car crash with her father, with Jamie's dad 11 months before. That was a car crash?
That was always what I had been assumed as well, was there was some sort of accident.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to remember, because I know obviously in H2O we get in the opening credits, you see survivor of Halloween murders dies in car accident. Do you see the newspaper clipping? So I don't know if the first time I saw H4, because I had seen it post Halloween H2O, I don't know if that's why I always assumed it, but that was kind of my thought too, is that she had died in an accident, obviously at a young age.
I won't speak for you, but that is exactly why I have always assumed it subconsciously. I never even thought of that before. Yeah. That's funny. I mean, just to briefly touch, H2 was originally going to include the Jamie Lloyd storyline very briefly, and then it was cut. And I always wish that they did, but whatever. What are you going to do? Right. So turns out that Laurie had a child and then passed away. Now, I just want to spend a moment talking about how incredible Danielle Harris is in this movie. She's mind-blowing.
I've never seen another kid actor do anything like that before. Like, she's never annoying in the film, very believable, and she's kind of our eyes and ears through this whole process, or this whole movie. Obviously, you've got Rachel, who is more adult or older, but it is a new perspective that I think we're watching this film through, and it's the eyes of a child.
Yeah, and literal eyes of the child, because a lot of the film is shot at her height. And so we're seeing the world around her from her angle. And I think that really immerses us. And at least as an adult now watching back, brings me back to that feeling of being afraid of the dark or hiding, she carries an entire movie, and she's put in such danger that you didn't really see children put in back then. Right. I just perfect casting.
Yeah, she did a fantastic job, and that obviously continues on into Halloween 5 as well, where she gives another, whether you like the film or not, Danielle Harris, her what she portrays in that film is just, it's really good. And they really, that was a huge W for that movie and for the franchise to get a young child actor who could act that well, because that very easily could have been a little bit of a missed opportunity, where it was like, oh man, maybe they should have cast somebody else, somebody more believable. But I mean, you believed that this little girl believed that her uncle was coming after her.
Absolutely. And she's got a great scream. She's got a great
Yeah.
scream. Again, not annoying. It's just like guttural, and
Right.
Yeah.
and scary sounding. So, and it should, it's obvious she was named after Jamie Lee Curtis, Jamie Lloyd. So she's watching the rain out the window with a golden retriever named Sunday, the good doggo, and happens to see the Smiths Grove ambulance across the street. And her foster sister, Rachel Crothers, played by Ellie Cornell, encourages her to go to bed. Jamie says, like, asks, do you love me like a sister, like a real sister? And we get the bond between them is showcased super well, super fast. And when Jamie looks out the window again, that ambulance is gone. So Rachel
Yeah.
takes Jamie to her bedroom and tells her good night. We've got the camera is at Jamie's level the entire time. She closes her bedroom window, which is open and the rain is coming in, and goes to her closet and pulls out a shoebox full of old pictures, and including pictures of her mom. And I actually love that it's a still from Halloween.
78. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like a
Yeah.
behind the scenes picture of her just sitting holding the pumpkin waiting for Tommy Doyle. It's just,
Right.
why would
Right.
she have a picture of that moment? It doesn't make any sense, but it's
Right.
cool.
Yeah, for sure.
She begins to cry, and then she kneels by her bed to start saying her prayers. And she prays for her foster family and for her parents in heaven. As she, actually, I should mention, when she walks toward the bed, she passes a mirror and the lightning flashes, and Michael appears in the mirror and she doesn't see him. He's wearing a mask here, which is telling. The closet door starts to creak open, and when she walks over to it, Michael grabs her by the ankle from underneath the bed. Jamie screams for help and she runs through the bedroom door. She can't get it open, and we get that great shot of Michael doing his crunches, his abs sit up, and looking at her. It's so embedded in my mind. And when she finally gets the bedroom door open, Michael is then standing there and he's holding a knife and he raises it to her. Now we see her foster parents run toward the door. And when they get to her room, they open the closet and there's Jamie clutching the box of pictures and crying. And she is told that it was just a bad dream, and they comfort her.
Yeah, it's once again sort of that believability here is you can empathize with where she's at. I mean, clearly her life has been turned upside down. She's not with her parents anymore. She's with a new family, and seeing this as a teenager, even you have that empathy for her in that position, right? You're thinking, God, that would have been horrible, right? To lose your family like that, and now you're living with this other family, and you're having these nightmares. But thankfully, you see that her foster parents, or at least her mom, is very sympathetic and empathetic to her, which is good to see that built into the film.
What I like about this scene is it sets us up with Jamie as almost an unreliable narrator. When we go on in the film and she's seeing Michael, we've now set a precedent of almost Boy Who Cried Wolf. And it takes me back to being a kid, seeing, monsters under my bed, that same sort of vibe where, we as the viewers have the knowledge to be like, oh no, this girl is actually onto something. But because she's having these nightmares, because she's seeing Michael maybe where he's not, we do have that extra added sense of like, well, maybe she's not that reliable, and we don't know. We can't blame the parents or the adults for maybe not believing her.
That's a great point I never considered. She does call him the Nightmare Man. So this is not new, right? She's been having these nightmares about her uncle for a while now. That's a great point, because when she sees him again, it could be real, it could not be real. We're not really sure, and it's filmed in a way where it's not telling either. Now the next day, it is Halloween, and the Crothers family is getting ready in the kitchen. Jamie's babysitter for the night has canceled, and so Rachel is told that she has to watch Jamie. And Rachel has a date that night with Brady, this guy at school that she's involved with, and she's upset that she has to cancel her plans. Now Jamie overhears Rachel complaining, and she says, "I'm sorry, I ruined everything," and runs off. And we get this touching scene where Rachel follows her to a room and apologizes and promises to get her double scoops of ice cream and to take her trick-or-treating. And she's not at first excited to go trick-or-treating. She's not into it. But she does come around to it a little later.
I like that she's she's not your typical kid who's wants to go out and get candy and do whatever. She's kind of like, the ice cream thing kind of sounds like a good, a good thing. And then obviously, and I know you're going to touch on this in a minute, but it builds up to that scene where she goes to pick out her costume, which in my mind is probably like a top 5 moment in this film for me. Because it's creepy. I love like the Halloween costume, or the Halloween costume shop vibe that it gives, even though it's a drugstore. Like it just sets that up so well, and that's where it was so well written.
Yeah, I completely agree. That seems terrific, and it utilizes more Halloween iconography and just traditions around Halloween. Like I used to love going to Party City and picking out my Halloween costume.
Right. Exactly.
So we're gonna cut to Dr. Loomis, played by obviously Donald Pleasence. This is our intro to him in this film. He's demanding to know why he was not notified that Michael was being transported. So that doctor at the sanitarium was bullshitting. Loomis was just not told, because he probably would have protested. Why are you doing this on Halloween? Right now, half of his face and his hands are covered in burn scars. He's also living with the mental scars of that night 10 years ago. He's not well. And, the doctor, Michael's doctor, receives a phone call informing him that there was an accident. And Loomis, as soon as the phone rings, Loomis knows. Y'all fucked up. Michael's loose.
Yep.
They drive to this ravine where the ambulance is upside down, overturned, and it's covered in blood. It was a massacre. I like that this movie shows us the aftermath of certain situations.
Yeah.
And doesn't show us the actual, like the police station, right? I actually would prefer to imagine what the hell Michael did,
right,
in a series like this.
It's good because like there are certain sequences like that either would have been hard to film or like hard to have in the movie with like a good degree of believability.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Hitchcock thing to just let the viewers imagine what sort of terrible stuff Michael could have gotten up to.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, and Austin and I have talked about this outside of just the Halloween franchise, but it's like the Blair Witch Project, for instance. I'm a huge fan of the Blair Witch Project. Yeah. And I think what your imagination does while you're watching that film is far more scary than anything you see on the screen itself. So I think in this way, as far as Halloween 4 goes, I agree, not necessarily showing the carnage that took place, but showing the aftermath of that carnage, both with the ambulance and the police station. It does a whole lot more for me than if I had seen Michael walk in and slaughter 10 police officers or however many people he killed in that police station.
Right. Totally agree. There's kind of when people say, Michael, he's so brutal, like I can't, like when the zombie movies came out, I can't wait to see him be brutal. I'm like, well, he's more of like a lurker in the shadows, and like he can be, but he's not like a brute, like run around and crush bones kind of guy,
Exactly. Yeah,
no, that's Jason's territory.
Yeah, there's this ongoing theory that you're either a Halloween fan or you're a Michael Myers fan, and both styles, I think we both have very different interpretations of what this series is. Like we watch them for very different. We experience different movies when we watch them. I'm a Halloween fan for sure. I like the lore, I like the vibe, I like the feel and the tone.
I think that's way more important, and it's what made me fall in love with the franchise more so, even though Michael Myers and I've said this a couple times, is like screwed up as it is like one of my favorite characters in film.
Sure.
I'm a much more Halloween fan.
I would agree. I mean, I think that's where I land too. I think it's the style in obviously there are different actors that have portrayed Michael Myers throughout the films. It's not always been the same actor. I think it's okay to love a specific Michael and maybe not be as big of a fan of others. But for me, it's the love of the films and the storytelling more than it is like a specific love of Michael Myers or being specifically a fan of Michael Myers. I'm a fan of the franchise.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad we got that out of the way. So Dr. Loomis deduces that Michael has survived this crash and that he's already gone. He's on his way to Haddonfield. He mentions he's not a human being. That part of him died years ago. And Loomis sets off for Haddonfield. Now we cut to a garage at a giant gas station, like a rest stop, where a mechanic is under a vehicle fixing it, rolls himself out, and is impaled by Michael, who has the bandages over his face still. Loomis pulls up for gas. We see that ice machine that for some reason is such a big deal, but there's no attendant. He enters the garage, finds nobody around. We get, this movie utilizes point of view, someone's lurking and watching me camera movement a lot, really effectively. And suddenly the mechanic's body drops from the ceiling, suspended by chains that are kind of garishly and grossly wrapped around his face. Loomis runs to the diner that's connected, and it's empty. He pulls out his gun. I just love that he is always armed everywhere he goes. The first movie, the bracket looks at him funny when he pulls it out and he goes, I have a license.
Right.
So the waitress has been killed. She's dead on the floor and the phones have been destroyed. And he slowly turns around. This is the scene we were talking about, and sees Michael face to face from across the room wearing that mechanic's jumpsuit. And he's got the white bandages on his face. So from a distance, it's very much like the classic Michael look that we know. It's a great introduction and a great bringing them together again.
For sure. Moment. Yeah. And that scene is, we touched on it a little bit already, but it's like the realization or the culmination of Loomis now knows that he has an issue, and that is that Michael Myers is out again. The gorilla is out of the cage, and he's trying to figure out how he's going to get that gorilla back into the cage. And when he shoots at him, and I still don't know to this day. I always go back and forth when I watch this film. Is he shooting at Michael's reflection? Like, are we not actually seeing Michael? All right, because he shoots and he hits a mirror and the mirror shatters, and is he seeing a reflection of Michael? Like Michael knew, or Michael is not actually standing right in front of him. He was seeing a reflection of Michael, or did Michael just happen to be quick enough that by the time Loomis, pulled up his gun, he was able to bounce out of there real quick? But I just think that scene is so great, and like we talked about, that whole conversation of Michael, don't go back to Haddonfield. He's leading with this guy. Do not do what I know you want to do, and knowing that he has to stop him somehow.
Yeah, it's now like the pieces are starting to come together to really make it a true Halloween film. Mm-hmm. We've already got one character that we talked about that's kind of our unreliable source. I think Sam Loomis has unfortunately been he's been told, no, you're just crazy. He's been the whole time he's been gaslit that Michael Myers is not a problem. It's nice for that burden to kind of be taken off of his shoulders a little bit here, because he is seeing face to face, like you said, across a bar with a lot of pictures of Abraham Lincoln. His project, and I like that he starts with the psychiatrist side, and then obviously it's time to pull out the steel and fires at him.
Yeah, well, Michael ends up stealing a tow truck and crashes through the garage, barely avoiding Loomis, and crashes through a gas tank, causing a massive explosion. Loomis's car is destroyed, and Michael drives away.
Yeah.
At school, the children are taunting Jamie because her parents are dead. What the fuck?
yeah, that is pretty jacked up. I'm not gonna lie. That's like a whole nother level of cruelty from kids.
Yeah. They call her an orphan. They tell her that her uncle is the boogeyman, which he is. And
right.
But it's obviously very reminiscent of Tommy Doyle being bullied at school in the first film. When they trip him and he smashes his pumpkin, and it makes me sad every time.
Yep.
She runs off in tears, and this is a moment I think that pulls her closer to us. She's so endeared to us because she leans against a tree and she stops herself from crying, and she reminds herself, like, you're okay. Like, this poor 7-year-old had to grow up really fast, and she has to self-preserve because she's not living with people that she knows, right? She has to tell herself, you're okay. And it's really, Danielle, like, what the hell? How did you do this at 7 years old?
Yeah, that seemed like that should have been a 30-year-old actress playing that particular scene that she does so well at 7 years old.
Yeah.
I've never taken it the way that you're explaining it, but it makes total sense, and maybe I should have been the whole time. But yeah, she is somebody that her her main source of care is gone. And so now she kind of has to like say those words. It's almost like you're at practice and now you're in the game and you got to say the words to yourself.
Yeah.
And that is a really good point. I gotta go back and watch and think about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's she's done this before. I think she's had to calm herself down before. So Rachel pulls up to pick her up and asks if she's okay. They are in Lindsay's car. Now, this was supposed to be revealed to be Lindsay Wallace, the little
Right.
girl that Laurie was babysitting in the first film. She was going to have a bigger role. They ended up not going that direction. So it never confirms her as Lindsay Wallace, but she is.
And I would have loved it if it had been. I mean, I
I
know that
know.
it may have changed the outcome of the story and they
Mhm.
would have brought that character back, but I still, when I watch that, I still kind of secretly think to myself, like, that's Lindsay.
It
That's Lindsay
is.
Wallace, you know?
Yeah, 1000%. They go to Discount Mart to get Jamie a Halloween costume, and it just so happens that Brady, Rachel's beau, is working. Now, at Discount Mart, Brady, played by Sasha Jensen, encourages Wade, played by Richard Stay, to make his move on classmate Kelly, played by Kathleen Kinmont. Now, Wade, I assumed would have a bigger role, but he just doesn't at all.
No,
I,
he just gets told to fuck off.
Yes, he does. Which is so Kelly is Sheriff Meeker's daughter. He's the new sheriff in town. He is rejected when he approaches her, and then that's the end of Wade. Now, Lindsay drops Rachel and Jamie off at the store, and Rachel tells Brady, I can't go out with you that night. She has to babysit, and he gets he's a dick. He's not happy about
Yeah.
it. Jamie goes to look at a scary Halloween mask. She's looking at costumes down the costume aisle. One of them behind her happens to be the classic white, well, I won't say the classic white Michael Myers
Yeah.
mask, but it's a white mask that Michael Myers would maybe wear, if he were in a pinch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost got like reddish hair. I've
Yeah.
seen some I've seen some collectors make like the Vincent drugstore or the drugstore mask.
Oh, that's
Oh, dude,
cool.
I want one of those so bad just to put on display. I think that's so cool.
It,
It's got
I,
really tiny eye holes.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a weird mask.
I can't get too into collecting because I got the trick or treat mask. I had it redone from someone on Etsy who did an incredible job with it. He put like the needle hole from the knitting needle in his neck. I was really impressed. Had Nick Castle sign it, and that's it for me. I can't keep buying masks because I will
It's a slippery
destroy
slope.
my yeah. But this would not be one of them that I
Fair.
included. So she selects a clown costume, and it happens to be the exact same one that young Michael wore in the opening sequence of Halloween. Michael's burned hand is seen grabbing that white mask off of the rack, and then Jamie looks at herself in the mirror, and her reflection turns into that of young Michael's as grown-up Michael steps behind her. And she backs into him and screams while he's putting the mask over his face. And then she backs into a mirror, which shatters. This is the third instance of Michael and a mirror, right? Because we had the nightmare, and then we had Loomis, and now we have this moment. And I
Right.
think that's probably on purpose.
Right. I
Wow.
would agree.
Yeah.
And there's such an awesome shot. Like once Rachel comes over to kind of console Jamie and asks her what's wrong, and I think Kelly's character comes running up and everybody's there, then they kind of back off and you get the awesome shot of all the broken mirror pieces with
Yeah.
Michael's reflection, which is
Yes.
so cool.
Yeah. So cool. It reminds me of, is it Night of the Demons? There's a similar shot to that.
Sure. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Loomis, we cut to Loomis. He is seen running along the highway, and he is taunted by some like asshole teenagers, cheerleaders in a convertible. I actually love that they're pulling up to try to pick him up is in a little bit of slow motion.
Right.
And then they laugh at him and drive away. And he's just old and having a rough day. A reverend in a beat up car picks him up. His license plate is Amen. This character, from what I understand, was to have a come up, like he was going to meet his end by Michael later on in the movie, and it just didn't go that way. But he recognizes that Loomis is, quote, like hunting it, the apocalypse, the Armageddon, and it's always got a face and it's got a name. You can't kill damnation. It doesn't die like a man dies. And Loomis looks at him and says, I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love this character.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded if he showed up a little later,
Right. Exactly. He's got like you don't know you don't know what's really going on. Is this guy? And I think Loomis is kind of I love Loomis's face in this scene because he's staring at him like there's something wrong with you. But then it's almost like a realization of, oh, wait, maybe we're kind of singing from the same song sheet here, and you don't know like which one's crazier. Is Loomis crazier or is Reverend Sayer, is he crazier? It's like which one is which, and obviously he takes a pull from from his flask, which I love,
Yeah.
It's just a great scene.
I think it's one of the only times you see Dr. Loomis smile in any of these movies is, after he's singing, "We'll be going to the river."
Yeah.
It's true. The only other time I can think of it is when he scares those kids away in the first movie. He has that moment of like self-satisfaction. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So that night, the Haddonfield streets are full of trick-or-treaters. The Crothers are preparing to leave for their night out. The parents are. Jamie puts on her clown costume and she and Rachel head out to go trick-or-treating. Now, Michael is seen in the house rifling through Jamie's box of pictures that are in her closet, including those of his sister, Laurie Strode. And then he comes across one of himself as a little boy in the clown costume, which means that picture would have been taken the night that he killed his sister. I don't, for the life of me, understand why Jamie would have a picture of her murderer uncle as a child in the costume that he was wearing when he killed her aunt in her box of photos. But I'm just going to go with it.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah,
what a weird thought that like this is the last time my uncle was like relatively human or sane or whatever. And this is a picture of my uncle the night he started, a manhunt on my family.
Right. Here's my 5th birthday. Oh, here's Christmas 1986. Oh, here's when we got our dog. Oh, and here's my serial killer uncle before he murdered his sister.
Yep. Now, Loomis arrives at the Haddonfield Sheriff's Department to discover that Sheriff Brackett has retired. He's introduced to the new sheriff, Sheriff Meeker, played by Beau Starr, and warns him that Michael Myers is on his way. He's coming after his niece, Jamie Lloyd. The sheriff does not believe him. And Loomis just loses his shit and starts yelling. And I'm like, for God's sake, someone listen to this man. Like, he's at his wit's end. But he convinces him, and the sheriff agrees to look into it, and they're going to go find Jamie to check on her and make sure that she's okay.
I think Loomis has had enough of trying to, prove what's going on to these, these men in uniform. Yeah. And he started getting fed the same lines. It's almost like when you're on customer service lines and somebody starts telling you the same advice, turn it on and off again. And, he's hearing, Michael's not back. And he's like, I'm going to cut to the part where I get really upset right away.
Yes. Yeah.
So we can just avoid all of the middle nonsense. He's been through the ringer twice already. Yeah. And he's like, all right, I'm not doing this shit. Michael's back. Let's get him.
He's like already screaming into the phone, representative, just let me talk to a person. So as Jamie is trick-or-treating, she makes some buddies, and it's a really like, oh, maybe she will have a nice little Halloween. She's making some friends. They compliment her costume, and oh, this is great. Good for Jamie. Things are on the up and up. And that's not going to work out. No. But they knock on a door, and it turns out to be Kelly's door. And she answers in nothing but a t-shirt that reads, "Cops do it by the book." It's just stupid fucking shirt. This poor girl. What costume designer decided to put this woman in this outfit for this entire movie?
Right. Yeah, she doesn't even put pants on as like things as everybody invades her house later.
No. Nope. Behind Kelly, Rachel sees Brady enter, who calls out to her when she runs away. So she canceled plans with Brady. Brady runs to the love and arms of Kelly. What the fuck? Brady puts the blame on her. Classic, like,
just
classic gaslighting, right? Well, you canceled on me and I was really mad. What was I supposed to do? I don't know. Put your fucking dick away.
Right. Yeah. Brady had one intention that night, and he wasn't going to get it with Rachel, so he was going to the next best thing.
Yeah. Jamie ends up wandering off while Rachel is arguing with Brady, and when Rachel realizes that Jamie's gone, she can't find her. And then Brady elects to go back in the house with Kelly instead of helping find Jamie or go try to make something work with Rachel. This guy sucks. Now
He's such a jerk.
A bunch of rednecks are in a bar. I'm going to use the word rednecks every time I refer to them. And I mean, they're vigilantes. They are drunks. They are gunslinging. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hate to imagine what they would be like in the year 2024, but for now, they're serving a purpose. They're hanging out in a bar and they're watching the news, and it's announced that there's a curfew and everyone is supposed to go home. Bartender's pissed and he calls the police station. He's like, ain't nobody gonna make me shut down my bar without reason. But there's no answer at the station. And so this riles everybody up and they get scared and they rush to their trucks and their guns and they start taking to the streets. They might be the scariest part of this movie to me.
They are confirmed drunk, confirmed driving, and confirmed carrying weapons. Yeah, they are as scary as like 15 Michael Myers out there. Yeah.
Well, and can we talk about, I mean, you call them rednecks, which it's true. Like, this is, Austin and I are from the Midwest, and Illinois is considered a part of the Midwest. Why do they have like Southern accents, and why are they? It makes no sense to me. I don't get it.
I was born in Southeast Missouri, which is not the South, but everyone in Southeast Missouri has a Southern accent. Right. And my mom used to claim that she was Southern, but like, this is Illinois. Like, at least Missouri's close to the Mason-Dixon line. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. They're going for the stereotype here.
Yeah.
And it worked.
It did.
Loomis and Meeker enter Jamie's bedroom and they discover poor Sunday, the good doggo, has been killed. And it's reminiscent of Halloween. Michael probably took a couple bites of this dog like he did in the first film. At the local power plant, this is a scene that is completely embedded in my mind from childhood too. An electrical worker named Bucky, which might be my next Halloween costume. I might go as Bucky now that I think about it. But cute couples costume. Oh my God, Michael Myers and Bucky.
There you go. Exactly.
He's stalked by Michael, who lifts him up over his head like a pro wrestler and just throws him into the electrical, is it coils? What is it? The big power station. Yeah. And it shuts down power all over Haddonfield. I don't know how realistic it is, but I think it's a cool way to just completely shut off all power from Haddonfield.
Right.
Now the whole town is vulnerable,
Yes. Yeah. And it's like it had to happen, but how are you gonna make it happen? I mean, the easy way would have been like, a car drives off the road and takes out the power pole. No, we're gonna up the ante. We're gonna actually throw somebody. We're gonna launch them WWF style into these, whatever it is, this power station, and we're gonna kill power for all of Haddonfield.
Poor Bucky. He's in that movie for like a total of 30 seconds, but he has a grip on the Halloween fandom. Everybody loves Bucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I also love that Bucky's like, he's like, you just wait right here. I'm going to call the police. And it's like, oh, that's going to work. He's just going to stay there. Yeah.
Not happening. So Rachel wanders the now dark and empty streets looking for Jamie. She turns a corner and she sees Michael down this foggy path. I love they use like kind of the alleys and the little tiny driveways between houses super well in this film. It's not just running through the streets, it's running between houses, it's people's backyards. It feels neighborhoody,
It feels like Haddonfield.
Yeah, it does. I was gonna say, this is one of the best examples of like truly what Haddonfield feels like in my head.
Yeah, I would agree, because even now as an adult, knowing that the original Halloween was filmed in Pasadena and I can see every palm tree in the background, this feels more like Haddonfield than the original Halloween does.
Yes. 1,000%.
So she starts running. She climbs a couple fences. She's still looking for Jamie. Now she finds her. Poor Jamie. She hears a noise. I love the line, "Whoever you are, I have a big dog with me and he bites." The dog's dead. You don't know it.
You're right. Yeah.
The sheriff and Loomis pull up right as Michael appears. So it's Loomis and Meeker and Rachel and Jamie. Loomis notices that Michael is in the distance. Meeker asks, "Is that him?" And I think it's a cool moment because last time Loomis was asked, "Is that him?" And it turned out to be Ben Tramer, who got hit by a car and burned to death, right? It's just an interesting little callback to that. But Loomis doesn't hesitate. He's like, "Yes, I don't give a fuck who it is. Kill this guy right
Shoot
now."
Him. Yeah.
But they're suddenly surrounded by multiple Michaels who keep popping up out of nowhere. I love this sequence so much. Loomis pulls out his gun, but then it's revealed to be a prank. Some teenage assholes are dressing up as Michael Myers and just terrorizing people past curfew.
not a strong play if you're trying not to get shot in the chest that night, but it is what it is.
A little bit of a cop out, but just a cool when multiple Michaels show up. You're like, what is this?
Yeah.
They drive to the station as the real Michael watches them pull away from the middle of the street. Great shot.
Great scene. Love that shot with the like the exhaust coming out of the back of the car and like Michael being left in the middle of the road. Love it.
I don't know how no one saw him in a rearview mirror, but
right.
Fine.
Right.
And when they get to the station, it is in shambles and there is blood everywhere. Michael went on that rampage we mentioned earlier. Someone's missing an arm. What the hell happened here?
Right.
Our vigilante rednecks arrive at the station. They're angry and they're riled up. And Loomis tells them it was Michael Myers and he has come back to kill. And this gets the mob super upset. One of them lost his boy to Michael 10 years ago. Could have been Buddy from H2, could have been, Paul, or I don't know. Now I want to know who it was.
I agree.
Yeah.
In my head, I've always thought he was Paul's dad.
All right.
Or Bob's dad. Sorry,
Yeah.
Bob's dad is who I've always imagined.
Yeah. Because we never see Paul, do we?
No, you never see Paul. No, but that's a good point. I like that, Austin. Yeah, it could be Bob. It could be Ben Tramer, right? It could be,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meekers chastises Loomis for telling them this. And then Loomis is like, my guy, you don't have a police force right now. These are your only help. Like, they're going to go out looking for him. So sit down. Daddy's in charge now.
Right.
The officer watching over the Crothers house, it's the deputy. He's called away to go help with the vigilantes, and he pulls out. Now, Michael is hiding in his back seat. When he drives away, the Crothers pull into their driveway and go into the house looking for Rachel and Jamie, who are not there. Cut back to the vigilante rednecks, and they spot Michael in some bushes that are rustling. And they open fire. When I say they open fire, guys, they open fire.
Yeah, they let loose
on these bushes. They destroy benches and park stuff. And it actually turns out that it was not Michael at all. I love the line, "Shit, Earl, it's Ted Hollister. You dumb son of a bitch. You said it was Myers."
Yeah. Yep.
It's poor Ted. Didn't even get any screen time. He's just a rustle in the bushes. So we cut to Brady.
And what was he doing in the bushes? Just out of curiosity. That's what I'd like to do. Ted, what were you doing in the bushes that got you killed?
I don't think I want to know.
No, probably not. You're right. You're right.
We cut to Brady and Kelly making out in front of a fireplace. And just as things are getting hot and heavy, they hear her dad, Sheriff Meeker, pulling into the driveway. So they rush to put their clothes on. Meeker, Loomis, Rachel, and Jamie all enter the house. The deputy pulls into the driveway behind them. And it's awkward when Rachel walks in because Brady and Kelly, obviously, have got some drama going on. The girls are told to go lock up the house and wait in the bedroom. Brady is given a shotgun and some bullets. He's told to go to the attic, start sealing it shut so no one can get in. And he starts to walk away, and Meeker stops him and says, "Oh yeah, I catch you groping my daughter, and I'll use that shotgun on you."
I love it. Yeah, it's just awesome because Ben Meeker he's not stupid. He knows what was going on in that house before he got there. Yeah. Brady can sit there and pretend to read his magazine with his legs crossed and whatever. Right. His daughter is wearing a t-shirt and nothing more than a t-shirt.
Nothing else.
He knows. Ben knows what's up.
Yeah, 1000%. This next 8 to 10 minutes is so well lit throughout the house. It's just dark lighting done well with blue and then a little bit of pink here, and it's just it adds a lot of suspense when not a lot is happening.
Yeah, I love them being boarded up in a house because I'm a huge fan that I can't even remember the name. Night of the Living Dead fan, and the idea of these characters that are all kind of Mod Podge, not all of them fit together, being stuck in this house, and there is a hunter coming. Yeah. I just love the idea. It's almost like Haunted House meets Michael Myers, which are two of my favorite things.
Yeah, and I agree with what you just said there, Austin. I think it is. It's like Night of the Living Dead meets Halloween. And if you put yourself in that scene, the idea of being like, holy shit, we have to defend the castle. We need to board ourselves up in here, and everybody has a role to play in this. We need to keep this one dude out of here. We need to protect this little girl or protect Rachel and this little girl. And that to me is scary to be like, we are in total defensive, mode here, and kind of just hoping that he doesn't find a way to get in. I think that's creepy as hell.
Agreed. Totally agreed. And I guess I'd never really considered the Night of the Living Dead parallel, but that's perfect. That's a great comparison.
Yeah. It's just, they're stuck. There's nowhere to go. And the zombie, the monster is out there.
He's out there. The boogeyman is coming. Rachel fills Brady in on Michael Myers being Jamie's uncle while Jamie is crying in her arms, laying in bed upstairs. Meeker attempts to contact outside help on his radio, but it's not working. Again, some great tension going on. Things are still, where is Michael? We don't really know. Rachel leaves Jamie in bed asleep and descends the stairs. And the deputy is sitting in a rocking chair with his rifle and tells her that the state police will be there soon. Meeker and Loomis do get through on the radio and they call for help. Loomis decides to head to the Carruthers house as he suspects that's where Michael will go. He leaves and the door is locked behind him. Now comes my favorite scene of dialogue in the entire film when Rachel and Kelly confront one another in the kitchen while Kelly's making coffee, and Kelly claims that you and Brady didn't really have anything going on, and he's not married, and I've got a right to do what's best for me. And Rachel just looks at her and goes, "Don't you mean what you do best?"
Yep. Just completely calls her out.
If that is not some RuPaul's Drag Race backstage catty dialogue, I don't know what is. And then Kelly tells her to wise up to what men want, or Brady won't be the last man she loses to another woman. And Rachel pours coffee on that stupid t-shirt and says, "Have some coffee," and walks out.
It is. It's just a total cat fight. I love it.
Yeah. It's needed too. It's not like a comedic relief moment. It's just, it breaks things up a little bit.
Right.
Meeker hears about the rednecks killing Ted Hollister on the radio. And so he leaves to go take care of that whole mess. He leaves Rachel in charge of the radio, and the deputy locks the door behind him. As Jamie is waking up upstairs, Rachel hears a creaking sound downstairs. Kelly brings coffee to the deputy, who's back in the rocking chair, sitting kind of like rocking with his shotgun. And she lights a candle, and it actually illuminates the deputy's dead body on the other side of the room. And we see Michael stand up from the rocking chair. He's been playing a fool and shoves her up against the wall with the shotgun, impaling her through the wall, reminiscent of Bob's death in the original Halloween, yet still kind of its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I think you have this moment of, holy shit, is Michael about to use a shotgun? Like you like, that's what you get. It's that moment of, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Michael doesn't do that. And then it's like, oh no, he's just going to jam it through her body and pin her to the wall. I'm good with this.
That's a great point, because he even uses it as a weapon again in the next 3 to 5 minutes.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Rachel is told on the radio that state police are on their way, and she is excited and goes upstairs looking for the deputy. Comes across his corpse, then comes across the corpse of Kelly, and she screams and runs upstairs, and Jamie's missing from the bed. Runs back downstairs, and Brady tells her, "We have to get out of here right now, not without Jamie." And he points at the deputy and he goes, "Do you think she even stands a chance?"
Right. Just write her off. Write off your little sister.
He's the
dead.
Worst. Yeah. Absolute worst. He tries to shoot through the front door, and it's made of metal.
Yeah. Just a steel front door.
Like, why won't it open? It's made of metal. But what does that mean?
Right.
We're not getting out of here.
Yeah.
Rachel finds Jamie upstairs, and then Brady is confronted by Michael creeping up the stairs behind him. He is attempting to reload the shotgun. He could just run. He decides he needs to shoot Michael. Michael takes the shotgun, bops him in the head with it, and then Brady puts in a couple good punches at Michael. And unfortunately, it doesn't do much. He's grabbed at the neck, and Michael like breaks his jaw. It's just a great sound. It's
Yeah.
it's nasty. I just realized Busta Rhymes. I remember an interview where he said that he was the first person to ever fight Michael back in Resurrection.
You're right.
Not
Total
true.
lie.
Yeah.
Total lie, Busta.
Yeah. Busta. All right, so Rachel and Jamie run to the attic. They are pursued by Michael. I love Rachel's delivery of "Leave us alone, God, leave us alone." Michael finds a butcher knife on his way there, and Rachel busts an attic window, puts Jamie on her back, and climbs out onto the roof. This is my favorite scene of the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's
so good.
It adds another element to the danger in that scene. The whole sequence on the roof that we're about to get is it's like one of the iconic shots or visual moments in this film.
Have you ever seen video of when Halloween Horror Nights did the Halloween 4 walkthrough, like haunted house?
I have, and I'm jealous as hell that I never get to actually see it in person.
Oh my God. You walk through the diner when Loomis and Michael confront each other. You walk on the roof in this scene. It's so cool. This it's just good.
Yeah.
So she's climbing upwards. Jamie's on her back, and then they get to the top, and then they slip and they slide all the way back down. Ellie, the actress who plays Rachel, was actually injured in this scene. A nail like dug into her. She had to go to the hospital. On their way back up, Michael is seen climbing on the roof as well. Rachel narrowly misses a really sweeping stab from Michael, and they slide down the other side of the roof. Rachel ties Jamie to a cable and starts to lower her down, but Michael attacks Rachel, and she has to let go of the cable, and poor Jamie just free falls and then like catches on this cable halfway down the building, and it looks real painful. It looks great.
Yeah. It looks like she's going to need a chiropractor after everything is said and done, because that's a rough way to stop, to free fall to just being dangling 20 feet in the air.
I'm curious who her stunt person was, because when she rolls down the stairs later at the school, that looks good too. It must have been a very tiny person.
Austin, do you remember we saw her out at H45?
Oh yeah, she was at H45. Yeah, just a smaller person, and was, I mean, I would have, she must have work just doing stunt work for these types of roles.
Yeah. She was very, very small. She was a little bit older. I would say she was probably like maybe mid to late 60s now.
Wow.
I don't know what you'd say, Austin, but yeah, very, very tiny, petite, small. Obviously, to be able to stunt double a 7-year-old, just a very small lady.
Her and Danielle Harris were taking pictures together at H45. It was great.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I wish to God I could have made it to that. I need
You got to go to H50, man.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
I will be there. 1,000%.
Yeah.
Pinky promise right now.
That's right. Exactly.
So Rachel is now dangling from the gutter, and Michael is swinging at her with his knife, and she eventually falls to the ground. It's a great slow motion shot. Jamie frees herself from the cable and runs to Rachel, crying over her body, but Michael is behind her and starts walking toward her. So she has to get up. She's running. She's screaming through the neighborhood for help. It is alleged that someone actually did call the police while this scene was filmed, because a little girl was screaming for help running through the neighborhood. Danielle Harris has backed it up, but I've been on film sets. The whole neighborhood knows what's happening when you rent out a neighborhood to film on it.
I always thought the same thing. I was kind of like, how would they not have known something was going on? I mean, maybe unless her voice just carried super far, like blocks away, but you would still would have thought. So yeah, I've always wondered that too.
It's a great scene though, and a great shot, and she really just sells it so hard. Rachel begins to stir. So Rachel's not dead, thank God. Jamie runs into Loomis, literally, and tells him everyone's dead and I want to go home, which is very relatable. Loomis says he's just been at her house. That's the first place he'll go look for you. And he takes her to the schoolhouse, claiming that they will be safe there. Weird choice. Wouldn't be my first thought, but
agreed.
It's a nice set piece, right?
Yes.
He shoots out the front doors. The alarm sounds. Maybe this is why. He knew that an alarm would sound, notifying the police to get there. They look for a place to hide, but all the doors are locked. And he says, we'll be safe. And she says, you don't really believe that, do you? And he says, no. And then pink and blonde Michael Myers shows up.
There he is.
And throws him through a glass door. And so now Jamie, he's out. He's down for the count. Jamie is crying and starts running away. She starts slowly walking down the dark hallway. I love the weird silhouette art on the wall, like the paper, like shadows of it's just I don't think it was intentional, but it adds a spooky factor. Michael is standing at the top of a staircase, and she runs and she falls down that flight of stairs. She starts dragging herself across the bottom of the stairs. He grabs her by the ankle and starts to pull her, and Rachel shows up and blasts him with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
These rednecks hear the alarm. They pull up to the doors of the school as Rachel's carrying Jamie out. She tells them Michael's inside. And at first they're like, let's go get him. And she goes, no, guys, let's get out of Haddonfield. The state police are coming. And then they all have this like, oh, you're right. We saw the police station. Let's just leave it to them. They can have Michael. Let's get out of here. So they load up into a truck. They drive out of Haddonfield. There's 4 in the cab. So it's Earl, Rachel. Wait, is it just 3? Earl, Rachel, Jamie in the cab. That's it. And then there's 4 in the bed of the truck, and they've all got guns. They kind of pass by the state police on their way there. An officer stops and tells them if they keep driving, there's highway patrolmen up there. They'll take care of them. When they drive off, Michael starts to climb up the back of the bed of the truck. He's pulling like a Cape Fear, right? When Robert De Niro like hung at the bottom of the car. He very easily kills the 3 guys in the back of the truck and throws them out into the street. He smashes through the driver's side window and rips Earl's jaw and cheek out. Yeah. And it looks, I rewound it like twice this last watch. It looks so good.
Yeah. It's such a really brutal kill.
Yeah.
There at the end of the movie. And, you read it on my like little intro thing. I just love those practical effects. Mm-hmm. I don't think if they had to if that was on a screenplay today and they had to film that, I don't think it would look the same if they were doing it today.
No. And I honestly don't think until you've gotten into this detail, I never really realized how brutal Michael is in this film. And I think, if somebody said, hey, what are like the few really brutal Halloween films, I'd be like, oh man, he was brutal, obviously, in like Kills and in 6. And, there's a couple in there, and obviously the Rob Zombie films, but there's some brutality in this movie with Michael Myers that I guess I never really realized until we've started doing this deep dive.
Yeah, good. That's why I love the show, because it like we all realize stuff that we never really thought about before. All right, so Rachel climbs into the driver's seat. She just shoves Earl's body out. You gotta go, man. I gotta drive now. The Halloween theme comes in hard. It's so good. Michael is on the top of the truck, like on top of the cab, and he's reaching through the window for Rachel. She's swerving left and right, trying to get him off. It is like an unexpected action sequence in a slasher film. It looks like it's a big budget moment. It's really cool.
It is really good.
Screaming, crouched in the passenger side floorboard. And suddenly Michael smashes his face against the windshield, cracks it, and Rachel just slams on the brakes, and he flies into the street. He stands up like pretty much instantly and faces the truck. And Jamie puts the truck in gear, and she delivers, "Die, you son of a bitch," and just fucking races toward him. I love this moment. I love the way that she says that line. Was H2O intentionally copying this?
That's like the vibe. As you were describing this, I was like, I think I'm mixing up shots from H2O and H4 in my brain when I think of this scene. It is very similar.
I just watched H2O like 4 nights ago, and he crashes through the windshield in that one, but Laurie waits for him. She's like, "Get up, come on, get up!" Like she's waiting for him to stand up, and then she does the exact same thing. H2O didn't have callbacks to the sequels that weren't there, but this is very much the same sequence. I don't know. It's cool because she hits Michael. He flies through the air, lands at the bottom of a hill. Her truck breaks at the base of the hill, and we start to hear sirens in the distance. She tells Jamie stay in the truck, and she gets out to greet Sheriff Meeker. But of course, Jamie has gotten out of the truck and approaches Michael's body, who grasps his knife and begins to stand up. Jamie runs off just as the police and the vigilante rednecks open fire on him, and they blast him to, I will say it, smithereens.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's a good, like, it's a great stunt with squibs going off and just very well shot. He does fall backward into a sinkhole, question mark. Is that what we think it is?
Kind of like, it's a very symbolic, poetic grave for him to be sunk into.
He is presumed dead until Halloween 5, when we learn that it was actually a really lame cop out. I don't hate 5, and I love Tina. That's all I'm going to say. We're going to finish this movie out.
You're in good company.
Okay, good. Great. All right, good. Back at the Crothers home, Jamie is embraced by her foster parents, and Loomis arrives. Meeker tells him it's over, and Loomis says, yes, Michael is back in hell where he belongs. Mrs. Crothers, I love this ending so fucking much, guys. Mrs. Crothers takes Jamie upstairs and draws a bath, and as the water is pouring out of the faucet, we cut to a POV shot, very reminiscent of the original Halloween. A pair of scissors is grabbed off of a vanity, and then we see a mask cover the camera. And then we cut away and we hear her scream. And Loomis runs up the stairs, and we don't see what he sees. We see his reaction, and he's just screaming, no, 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 no. And Jamie is standing at the top of the stairs. She's covered in blood, and she's holding the scissors in her hand over her head. Loomis pulls out his gun to fucking shoot Jamie.
Yeah.
But Meeker takes it from him.
Yeah.
And to hear Jamie breathe like Michael at the end of Halloween, she raises the scissors toward the camera, and we cut to black and the credits roll.
It's amazing ending. Yeah, amazing ending,
man.
because and my understanding is that there was that high potential that was going to be the end of Michael, and Jamie was going to take over as the new killer.
Wow.
I mean, I personally obviously am thankful that didn't happen, but it would have been a hard 90-degree turn for this franchise had they gone that direction.
Yes.
I just like it that it's such a love letter to that first movie, and it ends the way it started. I think, like, a lot of people say, like, what's your favorite kind of timeline that you put into your head? Anybody that says 1, 2, 4, gotta agree with you. Like, if that's your trilogy, I'm with you all the way.
Yeah. 1, 2, 4 and 1, 2 H2O are like probably same level for me, but for vastly different reasons.
Yes. I'm a big 1, 2 H2O guy myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, frankly, a brilliant ending. The story, as I heard it, was that when they were filming 78, at the end, when Loomis looks over the balcony and sees that Michael is gone, if I remember correctly, his original direction was to act this way and start screaming, no, no. And I believe it was Pleasence who suggested, no, Loomis already knows that Michael's not there anymore. Like, Loomis knows Michael is not dead.
Right.
And so that's why we get the still stoic, like, he's still out there look from him. So it's cool to get to see him do that here, because he's been so sure this entire movie, right? He's been the driving force. He's been the trustworthy, like, he knows what to do at all times. And suddenly he's thrown this curveball.
Well, and to your point, he's also, he says Michael is in hell where he belongs. Like, right. he believes Michael is dead.
It's over. Yeah. It's a real shame that they fumbled the ball so bad with 5, because this was the perfect setup. But again, I don't hate 5. I'll talk about 5 come October. Yeah. But guys, final thoughts on this movie before we give it our ratings.
Go ahead, Os.
I think it's, I said it, or I mentioned it earlier. It is the quintessential sequel. I think of H2 as just that continuation more so than it's like own thing. It truly is more of the night he came home. H4 set the groundwork for every sequel we have seen since, as far as what a Halloween sequel feels like. You enter in on a town that Michael Myers did something some time ago, and you get the whole build up, and Michael comes back. And how many times have we seen it since then? Quite a few, but it really did knock it out of the park. It's absolutely deserving of being one of my favorite Halloween movies. And so glad we got to relive it beat by beat today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have to agree. I mean, I think for me, as I've said, this film means so much to me, but it really truly embodies what I'm looking for in a Halloween film. Obviously, the original is going to be incredibly tough to beat no matter how you shake it. But this film, in my mind, comes as close as you possibly can to being better than the original because it had all the right beats. It felt like a Halloween film. It felt like it's taking place on Halloween, and it legit is like it's an A, not an A plus. It's an A for me because it's like if that mask had been better. If that mask had been better, it would be an A plus, but it's a solid A for me, and I just absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna agree. I know John Carpenter has said multiple times he regrets the family ties, the brother sister idea, but I grew up buying it and loving it, and it never bothered me, and it still doesn't. I don't need to ignore it. It's there, and it's always worked for me. Maybe because I was a kid and it's just what I was fed, but I love just the performances, the way that it's shot, the use of score. It's just a tense movie, and it's I think it's my favorite. Well, it's my favorite Dr. Loomis and my favorite Donald Pleasence performance in the series. And I don't get tired of it.
No.
Even this week, I was like, I know this movie front and back. Do I really have to sit through it again? Yes, Ricky, you do, because it's that fucking good,
Yeah, exactly.
On the show, we have a rating system. A movie's a trick, which means it's okay. It's a treat, which means you love it, or it's a smell my feet, which means it sucks. I can go ahead and probably assume that we are all on the treat page here.
Absolutely.
Big treats.
Yeah.
A Halloween season cannot go on without. I mean, every year, and honestly, with this new resurged appreciation, noticing new things this time, it's going to go even deeper into my rotation for sure.
That's all tonight has done is made me go. And Blaine and I don't watch these unless it's October.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, all right. How long do I have to wait before I can relive this experience? This is one that I won't watch until October 31st because it is so great.
Nice.
So I'm going to be in anticipation until then.
All right. Good for you. I couldn't hold it in. Hey guys, I'm so grateful. I mean it. I mean it. I didn't even realize that you were such big fans of this particular film until we started recording. So I'm really glad it worked out. I wanted you on the show already because I love your show, but I'm so glad that it turned out that you love this movie as much as I do. How can my listeners stalk you?
Well, first off, thank you for having us on. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure, and it's been fun. We've obviously chatted over time, but it's great to finally connect and do this. But so you can check us out on Instagram at halloween.lives.podcast and go to our YouTube channel, which is just Halloween Lives. And we're a weekly podcast. You can find new content every single week. Our new episodes drop every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And we've got a lot of cool things coming down the road. So that's how you can get a hold of us. And feel free to reach out if you got ideas for the show or people you want to get on the show. We'd always love to hear from people as well. But we're just really enjoying doing it. And again, thank you for having us on the show.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. It was awesome.
I'm so glad you guys enjoyed yourself. The fact that you are I started out weekly and now I'm bi-weekly, it's too much. And the fact that you guys don't run out of things to talk about and you keep it interesting every week is so like you are the right people for this kind of content, for this kind of podcast. So thank you for the work that you do.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And that's the show, friends. You can check out my webpage, rickortreat.com, for samples of my writing. Follow Rick or Treat Pod on all social media platforms, and the YouTube channel Rick or Treat Horrorcast is continuing to grow and do really well. So go stalk me. And that's it. We'll see y'all later, spookies. Thanks for coming Rick or Treating. It'd be a real scream if you take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. The show's spooky intro and outro music is a cover of Camille Saint-Saëns' Danse Macabre, with orchestrations composed and performed by Lestat von Monlicht. My website, rickortreat.com, is designed and maintained by Evelyn DeVere. The show's social media content is created by my evil minion and social media manager, Stanley Martin. The Rick or Treat logo was designed by Philip Romano. Contact information and links to these artists can be found in the episode description. Check them out, they're frighteningly talented. Rick or Treat Horrorcast is independently produced by me, Ricky J. Duarte of Rick or Treat Productions. If you like what you heard, tell a friend. If you didn't, well, they're coming to get you, listener.